Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur Podcast. If this content resonates, please like and subscribe. Today, my guest is Jordanna Eyre. Jordanna is the founder of Spiral Growth Systems and the creator of Spiral Leadership Methodology, a transformational framework built on the Fibonacci sequence and the natural energetics of creation. She's known as the chief sorceress of life and business. Her framework empowers visionary leaders to grow expansively without the weight by aligning with the natural systems of creation. She's worked with leaders from LinkedIn, Microsoft, Cisco, Stanford, and more. Her mission is to awaken a global movement of authentic power in leadership. Welcome, Chief Sorceress Jordanna.
Thank you, Bev. It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Did I get your last name right? Eyre or Ire?
Air. Yeah, you got
Eyre.
it right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Though my first name is Jordana with a soft A, but I'll
Ah, I'm
answer. I'll
sorry.
answer to any. No, you were close enough. And I'll answer to it either
Jordanna.
way.
Jordanna. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, Chief Sorceress Jordan.
I'm
Appreciate
grateful to be here.
it. I'm excited to talk to you about your work with the movers and shakers and the leaders in among us. Um, Tell me about the symbology of the spiral in spiral growth systems, what
Mm,
that
hmm
means to you.
hmm So the spiral, it's part science and part, I guess, what you could call spirituality. Really, it's part science and part energy. And it's where the two actually connect. So if you look at how a plant is growing, when you see a plant grow in a time-lapsed video, or you look at like a seashell that you pick up from the beach, you see that nature grows in spirals, right? And it's even in our bodies, like the way our ears, for example, grow. We grow in spirals as well. But what we rarely see with the naked eye, or at least we're not trained to see, is how our businesses grow in spirals and how our relationships grow in spirals. And really, all the things that we're intending and desiring and wanting to create in our lives grow in spirals. And so the symbolism or resonance of that spiral in my company, Spiral Growth Systems, and everything is like we've got, the Spiral Leadership Model is our framework, Spiral Leadership Academy is it's all the spirals. And the meaning of the spiral is the dance with creation, that because it moves in spirals, I actually teach leaders how to identify it, but not with the mind, like how to sense it, to feel it, to know the spirals in their bones so that they're not unintentionally pushing against what they want to create, and they're actually flowing in the design that it wants to scale and expand.
Interesting. So is the spiral, I mean, as opposed to a straight line upward, a spiral kind of like that
Yeah.
is the idea behind the little circles.
Yeah.
Does this represent the struggles and that type of thing?
100%. I actually even I've got like a diagram of exactly what you're describing in a master class that I have, like, which is
Cool.
somewhere on my website if people want to find it, somewhere there. It's like we're trained to believe that upward, if you look at like an upward diagram of like, okay, that's what growth looks like, right? Diagonal, it's over and it's up and it's over and it's up. And we're trained to believe that. But the way life works is like, if you're like, okay, cool, my growth is here and I'm here right now. If you think you're going to go straight through, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be that sticking point, or the thing that makes you go, oh wait, actually I have to revisit part of the past, or oh wait, I'm having a challenging day. And we think that those things are what's stopping us from going here. But what nature is actually doing is like, no, actually, you need to go into the spiral so that it can go expandingly, which is not a word, but is now going to be a word.
Right. Right.
So that
Expanding.
we can really expand with time and space instead of against it.
So this is probably a complete non sequitur, but it reminds me of the stock market
It,
because
it is. It is.
because it doesn't go like that.
Yeah.
It goes like that, but it generally grows. it's
It's
always
exactly.
actually growing. So
And I have spoken to people. So the Fibonacci sequence is a mathematical ratio of this growth. And then there's the golden ratio, which is what you take when you put it all together. The golden ratio illustrates there's like the baseline of the Fibonacci math. And then there's the way that it grows into the golden ratio, which is what scalability looks like. And if you talk to somebody who knows the markets, and it can be, the traditional stock market or crypto, right? Who knows the markets and who understands the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, they are going to be far more successful, is what I've found speaking to those kind of people, as well as like people who have to diagnose pitfalls of like, oh, well, this, how am I going to get my company out of this market crash? When they understand the Fibonacci, they're able to use, and this is a mathematical thing too, they're able to use that to like get themselves out of the sticking point.
interesting. So do you teach the math behind the
I
Fibonacci?
don't. I don't. I don't. I teach, I only do, so I do teach some of the science, actually, a good amount. Like my 5-day challenge is like we start off with some like deep science. And then in all of my programs, we intersect science. So it's like I'll teach the science, but then what we do is we go into the energetics of what the heck that even means in our growth. Mathematically speaking, I teach almost zero of the math, but we can't help but still use it because if you look at like the basics of the Fibonacci sequence, you can't see this on the painting that I have behind me. But if you were to look at the way the numbers are, it's like 0, 0, 1, 1, and then the numbers start to add like 3, 5, 8, and so on and so forth. And if you look at, you're on one number, that number is the past, or I'm sorry, if you look at the next number, like if you're standing on a number and you're like, okay, I want to get to the next level of number, what you have to do is add the thing behind the one you're standing on.
Right.
And so mathematically, it's like, okay, that's a Fibonacci sequence, is that the first two numbers, then add up into the next number. But energetically, we're talking about the past and the future and learning how to work with the energies of both.
Oh, very good. So it's something that your students always have in the back of their mind that this is how
Mhm.
this works, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
it's a nice kind of physical thing to think about. I'm assuming that the Fibonacci sequence is created by somebody named Fibonacci.
Yes. Yes, somebody by created by somebody named Fibonacci. Yeah. The golden ratio, I don't know who coined that or designed the term, but yeah.
Okay, so what's the golden ratio then? Just in a
So
nutshell.
the golden ratio, the way I understand it, again, I understand these things far better in energies than I do in the math
Okay, well,
element.
explain in
But the
energies then.
way that I understand the golden ratio, oh, okay, actually, well, I'll tell you the way I understand it mathematically, and then I can go into the energy of it for sure.
Okay.
So mathematically, the way I understand it is that when you take the exponential qualities of the way the baseline math and the way that the Fibonacci numbers grow, it forces almost, for lack of better words, it co-creates a spiral.
Okay.
So it shows how those numbers basically then take anything and cause angles within it, and those angles formulate a spiral. Energetically, it is how the past is needing to be revisited. And we don't think, we're like, no, I don't want to go back there. I'm not supposed to relive. So, no, you're not supposed to relive the past, but you
Right.
are supposed to heal it. If you don't heal it, it will haunt you or your body, right? We know that our health problems are related to things of the past, etc. And so the golden ratio is that like sweeping back to the past and adding it with the future. And what it does is it sweeps us around in the spirals of life. But when we follow that, it actually allows us to both build a stronger foundation in our growth so that we are not building our businesses or our relationships or ourselves on a deck of cards. And in addition to the like stronger foundation, it allows us to scale both. I don't know if it's more quickly. Like I've worked with leaders that are able to scale their companies far faster because of this work, right? And then there are others who are like, oh, well, it's not necessarily moving faster, but the scale doesn't feel as heavy. It's not as exhausting. I am having equal amounts of freedom as I scale because the golden ratio allows us to go into a scale mode that is not, it takes away the heaviness because we're revisiting the past, healing the past,
Right.
and being pulled from the future.
Right. This is fascinating. So healing from the past, are we talking traumas or past
Yeah,
struggles? Yeah. Okay.
traumas, past struggles, old memories, but we're also talking about our ancestors
Yeah.
and we're also talking about other layers of time, right? I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure from what I know of you and we've spoken previously, I'm pretty sure you believe in, other lifetimes and
Oh,
things of that
yes.
nature,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
But it's
Absolutely.
like time's infinite, right? It's all here now. And so you could even see those other lifetimes as like, oh, another dimension or another layer of time.
Right.
And we're
Well,
called to go into all of that to heal it.
gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah,
That is fascinating. I mean, time is a spiral, right?
exactly.
It's what
Time is
I've,
time is a spiral.
yeah.
Time and space are like the way those are the systems that are moving the Fibonacci sequence.
Cool.
Or, God or the universe, which to me is just time and space,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
there's not a difference that one is the other and the other is, same,
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
How did you get into all this?
Oh, I mean, would you like to hear the more entrepreneurial journey or the more like trauma response development journey?
Oh, I like trauma response.
Okay.
Sounds juicier.
Okay. Okay. And it very much adds up with my leadership and entrepreneurial journey as well,
Okay.
that, they were parallel to each other. So how I got into it, I was one of those people that started with a calling. Now, what's ironic and interesting is, I work with people that are in search of purpose and using this work to find their purpose. And then I also work with people that know what their purpose is and are building from that place. It's not, we make meaning that somebody who knew their purpose early on or like was pulled by a calling that it must have been easier for them. It's not at all the case.
Interesting. Yeah, I would
So
have
I
thought that.
was
Yeah.
you would think so. You would think so, right? And so, yes, I was blessed to have this like feeling of a calling from when I was very, very, very young, which means that I like on a literal standpoint started doing the work that I do at 11 years old. I like built this club in my junior high school, teaching kids how to ask really big, deep questions. But what nobody knew is that, or not, that's not true. I was very honest about it. I didn't put my stuff onto them. Somehow I intuitively knew not to that
Mhm.
young. But what I also actually come to think of it didn't hide. Well, there was the eating disorder element of it that I did hide. The eating disorder was the symptom
Yeah.
of the deeper cause, which was that I was riddled with what you could call existential angst that I now also understand to be trauma responses. And I find that for very deep souls, people who feel deeply, who, have deep
Empaths.
thoughts from
Hmm.
empaths, yes. For
Hmm.
those of us feelers and empaths, there's not usually a separation between the trauma we've experienced. Even if you grew up without like a lot of active, obvious trauma, being an empath born into this world is trauma unto itself.
Yeah.
So the trauma we've experienced intersected with the deep inner knowing that causes us to feel very connected to something cosmic or, otherworldly, but also brings up a lot of shit for us. So I was riddled with that. I was like so torn and distraught, which meant that the same age as I developed that club in my junior high school, 11 years old was a big year for me. I also developed an eating disorder.
Oh, wow. At 11.
At
Interesting.
11, there's a lot of backtracking that I can now see. There was actually a very specific traumatic experience that happened at 11 that
Okay.
I now totally can see. But it was linked to a specific traumatic experience that happened when we're actually not sure if I was 6 or 8. I had the memories are vivid, but there's a little bit of a time clock confusion in my family of like, when were we living in that house? And like,
Right.
I don't like, anyway, anyway, there was a specific moment that unlocked additional trauma responses in me that led me into the eating disorder. But like, I also at the same time, my mom sent me to my first therapist, and I remember asking my first therapist these questions of like, okay, but, and I don't remember what the questions were, but they were like deep, deep, super spiritual questions that scared the crap out of this woman.
Not
Like
expecting
there,
this out of an
right?
11-year-old.
A lot of therapists today also do deeper inner work themselves. So they also ask big, but like historically, this was the 80s, right? So in the 80s, most therapists were barely understanding what trauma was, let alone asking themselves existential questions. So she was so scared. And then that caused a rift in a sep, not her specifically, but those kinds of incidents caused this rift and this separation further in me, where it's like I grew with a calling and I grew with this inner wisdom and I held tight to it somehow. But at the same time, I felt so separated from the world. And what the calling was doing is it was teaching me about authentic power. And it was teaching me, like, okay, yeah, you have this wisdom, but also when you act and operate out of misalignment with the truth of that wisdom, you're forceful or you're mean or you get angry with the world. And so it sent me down this path at a very, very young age to like use the combination of my existential angst, my trauma responses, and my inner knowing that I had the whole time to learn the ropes of authentic power that I now also understand was the Fibonacci sequence teaching
Mhm.
and guiding me. So that's the baseline. And then it was actually when I began my entrepreneurial journey that I was forced into a place of like actually having to really meet this stuff head on, because you can't scale a business if you're still like married to your addictions, or your trauma responses or your self sabotage. And I was still in self sabotage mode, still had an eating disorder, still didn't know how to fully, deeply process my own emotions when I started my first company. This was 2008, well, 2006. The investment, it was a whole investment journey and like losing the investment that we thought we were getting. And that was a
Oh,
big
I've
part
been
of the
there.
catalyst.
Mhm.
Have you?
I hear you.
Ooh, I want to hear your story too.
Oh God.
Long
Don't.
story short, I want to hear your story. So long story short with my story, it all of that, like the getting a business off the ground that was supposed to be dependent on $2.5 million in investment when I was only 28 years old and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, it forced me to match the propensity of my inner work to what I was building on the outside.
Mhm.
And that's like the rest is history. Once I got my bearings and learned how to go deep into the emotional realms, everything else lit up, not obviously like in a linear binary way, but the clock started ticking towards expansion and towards really learning how to use these systems more fluidly along the way. And that's where I would say the rest is essentially history.
Yeah. So essentially, you're teaching what you've learned for
Yes.
yourself. You're teaching others how to
I
do the same
used to
thing.
despise that phrase, we teach what we need to learn, and yet I just don't think we can separate ourselves from that.
Exactly. And what better way to do it? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've been there.
Hmm.
Um,
The
so
question is, are we really walking the talk of it?
yeah, yeah.
Or are we, and is someone teaching what they have learned that is integrated versus, they took a 5-day course or even a year-long course from somebody else. It was somebody else's learning. It's not integrated. Like we see some of that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But when we're really on our own path, then teaching what we need to learn is a process of expansion into itself.
And it's a
Yeah.
gift. It's a gift to
Yeah.
the folks that you're teaching.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Would it make sense to tell your investment loss story? Because I would love to
Well, it's very
hear it.
it's not a business thing, and I will
Mm.
say, all I will say is, if you are thinking of investing heavily in real estate, try not to do it just prior to a housing crisis.
Oh gosh.
Try not to do it the year before the housing
Oh,
crisis.
that is good advice.
I think that's all I need to say, actually.
Yeah, yeah, point blank.
That is
Oh,
the
I love
story.
it.
But you will recover, though. If it does happen, you'll recover.
Good,
Might take a little
good.
time to recover.
Uh, a lot
S-
of learning curves in the process, it sounds
Yeah, a
like.
lot of spirals on that one. That was a spiral and a half.
For sure, for sure.
So, do you work with like just corporate leaders or entrepreneurs or leaders, Boy Scouts or anything?
I don't know about Boy Scouts, although I'm sure I've had some past Boy Scout clients, I'm sure. So
Probably.
I work with leaders like statistically in terms of just like where they are in their leadership journey, anywhere from director level to founder level. So I do work with a solid amount of entrepreneurs and founders as well as co-founders. Sometimes I work with co-founders together. But I also work with people in corporate, director, C-level, and so on and so forth, anything in between, really.
Right.
But the baseline for me is not so much the level of leadership someone is in, nor is it where their company is. Like, obvious, it may be obvious that, I mean, what we do is pretty high level in terms of like, the investment and
Yeah.
what it takes for somebody to be ready. And because of that, it is more likely that founders who have, been at it for a while are going to join our programs, but it's not an end all be all. Like we do have early stage founders who have enough funding or who totally understand how to grow the business that is at stake for them. The logistical stuff isn't the question. It's the inner work that they know they're going to
Mm,
need to grow it, in which case it's worth the investment early on. But
gotcha.
so the crucial thing for us that makes our clients is that they have either done a lot of deep inner work already, and maybe it was great, maybe it didn't work, or maybe it did, and they're just like so ready for what hits deeper. Or maybe they don't have a tremendous background of deep inner work, but they're already deep feelers, deep souls, people whose really bodies and energy fields are already attuned to cellular level transformation. And I teach people how, like the cellular level transformation, you don't have to understand how to come into one of my programs because you will learn, but there is something to be said for more sensitive people. Our bodies are primed for cellular transformation. So it's either
Beautiful.
sensitive leaders or those who've done a lot of personal growth work and are there because of that.
And sensitive leaders get kind of short shrift, don't they? Out there, like you're not really allowed.
You're not really allowed. Yeah, I keep seeing, I'm not a fortune teller and I'm not like a future predictor. That's just not, I mean, I know there are some people out there that like are more gifted in that. That's not exactly my thing. However, I do see pieces sometimes when I need to see like where the planet is heading for the sake of what I do. And I have been seeing lately that sensitive leaders, something is shifting.
Mm.
It might still seem to be shifting slowly. Like I'm sure there are some people listening who are like, "Are you kidding? I'm in corporate, and if I even tried to feel a feel, then I would be fired for having any feelings, right? We
Right.
know that that can still be the case in some organizations. And there's even some founders who like still just are dead set like I need to stay in hustle mode and I can't bring the sensitivity into my work. Maybe it's their industry. Women, this can be challenging because they're conditioned to like have to act like men because of the conditioning of what working with the traditional white males, which I love them. I have many an amazing white male client,
Hmm.
many,
Hmm.
but we're talking the traditional kind of patriarchal stuff. There's just so many reasons
Yeah.
why we're not allowed to feel. But what I do keep seeing is that that actually is shifting.
Well,
And
that's
it's
good.
not just in my work, but I'm seeing it kind of on a macro. I mean, a good example, this is kind of political, but if you look at what Portland, Oregon, and this dates our podcast right now, but if you look at what Portland, Oregon, which I know you're not too far from them, what
No, I'm
Portland,
not.
Oregon is doing with the ICE and the immigration stuff, it's love.
Yeah.
It is
It's,
love.
it's
Like they
animals.
are taking, yes, it's fun, fuzzy animals, and it is like jokes and line dancing, and it's just anything where love and joy can be found. And I think that's a really good example of like the wiping away the conditioning that we've had where change can only happen without feeling and with only logic.
Yeah.
Like it's going to start happening with feeling. And then I do believe and keep seeing that the more sensitive leaders are going to get rewarded.
The love will conquer.
Yes. And it will get to the point where it's going to be easier to grow a business with
Mhm.
feeling.
Yeah. Well, they say that we're headed toward the ascension and the 5D world and
Hmm.
all that, and the veil is getting thinner and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So these are all examples of again, it's a spiral, isn't it?
It's a
We're
spiral.
moving generally towards that direction, but there's a lot of fits and starts.
Yeah. Have you heard of the fourth turning, Bev?
Mm-mm.
So
No.
that's my partner who he's more like he's definitely the more logical. I mean, that's not true. I have a lot of logic, but I lean more towards sensitivity and he leans more towards logic. He prefers instead of being like, "Oh, we're ascending," he doesn't like seeing it that way because that's like too hyper spiritual for him. But when he read about the fourth turning, he was like, "Oh my God, it makes so much sense." Because there are like there's a lot of data and statistics behind, I believe it's every 400 years. I think it's every 400 years. Don't quote me on it. The world actually needs to break down what is not working and build anew. And that's what we're doing.
Oh. Do you, we must have arranged in advance to be here for that. Don't you
Doesn't I had
think?
chills with you saying that. I feel that. And again, even my very logical partner, who's like the furthest thing from woo woo, he says the same thing too. He's like, we had to have arranged to be here at this time because like it just wouldn't make sense otherwise.
Right. It's not something you would fall into by accident,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah.
So I guess, well, in your case, you have your purpose along with it. Um, and
Which,
maybe,
continually grows though.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, clarity in one's purpose still comes with spirals. It still comes with, okay, there's another layer. But anyway, I cut you off. You were
No,
saying.
that's okay. I was just going to say we're here to witness it maybe
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, it can
Witness,
end any time.
participate. We can fully transition. Really, let's do it any day
We're
now,
we're
which
ready
I know
anytime
is
now. Okay. Um,
yeah.
okay, so what do you think? Do you think that this is you were just talking about the empathic leaders and their struggles. Is that the biggest struggle that you see? You've got your finger on the pulse of leadership. What's the biggest struggle that they're facing right now?
The biggest struggle that an empathic leader faces.
Or any leader, I guess. Any leader that
Um,
you work with.
I would say there's probably, I mean, their sensitivity is probably their biggest struggle.
Hmm.
But the way we see it in terms of like how that filters into real world problems. One, and I think that some people would like super duper identify with this, and others would be like, no, that's not me, but it's showing up in other ways. So one is super sensitive people, super empathic people. We tend to also be connected to the collective consciousness.
Hmm.
I mean, nobody's not like everyone. It is the collective. We cannot actually fully just like disconnect and cut ourselves off. However, more sensitive people, as you know, like we are more connected to the collective, which means that for very sensitive leaders, it can be a challenge to like shut off what's happening out in the world. Not that we're supposed to shut it off. There are ways to work with what's going on, but a lot of sensitive leaders don't know how to integrate what is happening and why it's occurring inside of them at
Hmm.
the same time as they're growing their business. And they actually go together. Like they are supposed to be when something shifts in the planet and now it rocks your world and you're like, I'm having trouble focusing today. It's because there's something that it's trying to heal or shift within you for your work in the world too. Right. But a lot of sensitive leaders don't know that. And then I would say that, like, kind of the parallel for those that wouldn't resonate with the external problem being what's going on in the world. It is still the same though, of like the ups and downs. Like sensitive leaders tend to either have more ups and downs, which, deters and holds them back, or there are some that are really, really, really good at shutting out the ups and downs to just keep moving forward. But then they wind up either deeply unfulfilled or their business ends up built on like a house of cards. And then they
Mhm.
have to, I wouldn't say go back and rebuild, but something will usually happen then. And this is where, sometimes when people come to me, where they're like, oh shit, I did just build all of this on a house of cards. How do I strengthen it from where I'm standing? But it's
So
the same inner work.
yeah, do you think they're not learning from they're not picking up the learning that and just
Exactly.
sort of carrying on? Yeah.
So, like what we talked about with the math and the dance of the Fibonacci, that it's like if you want to get to the next biggest number, but you're standing here on the present, you actually have to go and integrate what's in the past with the present to get to the future, right? And so, sensitive leaders who have gotten really good at just moving forward have gotten good at disregarding the past, the stuff that shows up as emotional resonance, as, and it could be thoughts or emotions or feelings or anything where it feels like it would carry them down. And so they just don't let it,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
is a gift in a way, kind of, sort of. There's a way to harness it differently, though,
Right.
right? And so because they haven't been integrating that the past, it's like they keep going to the next number, but it's not really the fullness of the next foundation. And so they have to still go and integrate the past to get to, or they'll get to that bigger thing and it just feels super heavy because
Yeah.
they never did.
Pesky past. These these
Yeah.
pesky things that happened in the
Will.
past.
It will. I mean, it's like it's interesting. I was having a conversation in the VIP room of my 5-day challenge the other day. There was someone who's very, very, very logical. And he was like, you could tell that he like really wanted to get in touch with his feelings, but like everything in his logic said, I don't have time, I can't, I won't. And I was like, okay, well, do you believe that everything's energy? And he said, yes, absolutely. And I was like, cool. Okay, so we're on the same page there. And if everything, and it's just a simple question. It's like, okay, cool. So if everything's energy, where does the stuff that you haven't dealt with go? And he's like, it was just, you could see the light bulb. It just went on. He's
Body.
like, oh, it goes in here. I'm like, so would you really say that it's accurate that if you just move on and don't deal with it, that you're getting past it? He's like, oh shit, no, now I get it. It's so simple, right? But we're just so conditioned otherwise. All of us.
Exactly. We're told, don't worry about those things.
Yeah. I would be curious actually in your design business. Am I allowed to talk about your, what else you
Sure.
do outside of in your design? It's a good plug for you actually. In your design business, do you have to deal with people getting like crunchy or frustrated or maybe communication barriers or just stuff where clearly something's coming up from the past for them to integrate? Do you ever have to be like therapist or counselor to help them do that in order to get their website out to the world?
You do. I run across people who don't have don't have quite the confidence. And for example, somebody who would say, well, what I do, it's not rocket science. Anybody can do it, kind of thing. Okay, whoa.
Okay, that's not very marketing
That
friendly.
well, it's
Humble.
it's just not how you want to feel about, and they're quite passionate about what they do and they love it and everything, but they're not seeing the value for
Yeah.
some reason or other. There could be
Yeah.
something that went on in the past or I'm sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, that type of thing does come up.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a lot of that actually. And I think it
Yeah,
is so easy, in addition to all the like trauma responses that could be occurring, and who knows, like you said, who knows what actually is the deep, the deeper cause could be so many things there. It is also just so common for us to like, and this is partially though stuff that needs to be integrated, but it is so common for most people to, and it's part of what causes imposter syndrome to get to the point where like what you do, it is just so easy breezy for you and you just love doing it and you do it so well that you forget that not everybody is there.
Hmm.
And you forget that actually for some people, this is like the most magical, highly valuable thing. Because to you, it's like, well, how would it be highly valuable when I do it in my sleep? And it's like, well,
Yeah,
but okay, not everybody
exactly.
does.
Exactly. And it's you doing it. There's competition, of course, but this one is you doing
Hmm.
it, which is another thing altogether. So,
It really
yeah,
is.
imposter syndrome is a giant thing among solopreneurs.
Really
Um,
is. Yeah, it is. I've even observed this though in leaders inside of larger companies, as well as founders of companies that are in the midst of scale, specifically when they hit, and this is like a very crucial point in which I tend to work with a lot of leaders. It's not the only reason, but it's one big reason. Like if they're either growing in their leadership or their company is scaling, and that is involving kind of a change of heart of like, oh, I'm ready to let the legacy out of the box,
mhm.
or I'm ready to let this greater sense of purpose, or I'm ready to let my personal brand be part, which I think there's, a bit of an overuse of the idea of personal brand out there. However, there is something to be said for a lot to be said for like you as the leader, it is your heart and soul that
Yeah.
is also leading, right? So as a leader finally gets to step into the place and you have to like in the corporate America, you do have, in corporate, really the whole world, you do have to, like, unfortunately, earn your stripes before you can get to the point of being able to do this. But when you're ready to let the purpose out or let the personal brand out, it can actually cause a lot of soul searching and
Hmm.
a lot of like going back to those traumas that you didn't realize hadn't yet healed or integrated.
Yeah, for sure. Those are holding your business back no matter what level you're on.
Yeah.
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 Um, do you find that people are worried about AI coming in and taking their jobs or their employees' jobs or
It's a great question. It's such a mixed bag. I do tend to attract in a lot of people in tech and a lot of people, like I have a client, for example, who he's not in tech, but he's a director. No, actually, he's kind of almost C level. It's like it's kind of C level. His role is not technically C, almost C level of operations inside of his company. It's a pretty large construction company, and he heads the AI department. He heads the AI growth,
oh
even
wow.
though it's construction, right? So I do tend to attract in a lot of people who like they get technology and they're really on board and they can see how it's going to help them. But there are, of course, a lot of people who are scared about it. I've noticed, though, that a lot of people who are scared about it, it seems that I think we're maybe just starting to shift to where people who are concerned about it are willing to admit it out loud,
Yeah.
right? And I think that it tends to also be for like job seekers, people who are currently seeking jobs. There can be fear of like, am I even going to be able to land something because of AI? And it's just what I've observed, though, regardless, is getting to the point where AI cannot usurp you or your career or your business. It requires, yes, new mindset. And like there's some simple transformational stuff. So stuff of like stuffs. My
Yeah.
grammar is amazing.
Stuffs.
Some simple transformational stuffs around mindset and understanding how to implement AI in your company and stuff that's very logistical. But then there's also a shift. Basically, for lack of better words, I have observed that when we shift into comprehending our world as quantum, comprehending ourselves and our purposes as quantum. Now, I don't think a lot of my clients probably wouldn't describe it that way. I do have some that are like teaching that now, they get it so much. But I think a lot wouldn't describe it that way. But it is, there's this like when you get that you are multidimensional,
Hmm.
then it allows you to get to this point where your humanity is so connected to what you do and vice versa. And it grows your humanity. And then it's like you actually can't be taken over by AI because what you offer is always going to be intrinsically you and
Yeah.
intrinsically part of what the collective needs now.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's correct. I think I
Yeah.
totally
Mm.
get that. There's lots of ways you can do put a website together using AI, but it's not a design, it's not designed by me or some other professional. So
Hmm.
there's always that crux there that's
Yeah.
going to be missing.
Yeah, the
That's my
intuitive
theory anyway.
elements.
I'm
No,
sticking
I
to
I
it.
I agree. I very much agree. There's the
Yeah,
intuitive elements that AI is not going to be able to bring. There's the dimensional elements. There's the like AI cannot see into someone's soul and be like, "Oh, cool, here's what the design needs to look like as a result of their personality or their soul or their message."
their
Right? AI
archetype
can't
and yeah,
do, yeah, yeah. Whereas you, and those who are really gifted at design, like that's what they're doing, or at least part of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that.
mm, Thank you for having those gifts.
Yeah. Um, I guess how do people work with you? Is it group sessions or one-on-one or
So the easiest way to get going is generally my 5-day challenge. It's called the Make Time Your Ally Challenge. I will quickly add on that note that though it is Make Time Your Ally, we have already established that time is and space are not separate from spirit, right? And therefore from our growth. So it really is like a full 5-day transformational journey. That's the easiest way to come in, get some really solid ROI, get your feet wet in working with the Fibonacci sequence and learning how to use it in your leadership, getting some results there. And then if it really is feeling right, then you can come into my 9-month program. That being said, I mean, it is absolutely a thing that people reach out to me. They're like, I just know I knew I need to meet you now, and I know I need to, discuss your program now. And so if that's the case, you can book a 15-minute spiral strategy call with me. That's where we start, is with 15 minutes, and then we see if it makes sense to take next steps from there. And then there's also on my website a bunch of free stuff. And I don't know, am I going to be giving you links, Bev?
Mhm. Yeah, for this
Okay.
description box. Yeah.
We'll discuss later. There is a 4-part training series. Bev and I will discuss offline the what links to give y'all. Um, we have a 4-part training series coming out in the next like 2 to 3 weeks from our current recording date, you and I, Bev.
Yeah.
So if I'll let you all know. We'll let you know in the links. If you don't see the 4-part training series, it means there's a different training series available. But even if you do sign up for that, it's still very good, and it will get you onto my newsletter, and then you will be notified when our 4-part
Awesome.
series. And that's a
Awesome.
really good free way to like super dig your feet into like, okay, here's what is available and possible for me.
Yeah. Awesome. So spiralgrowthsystems.com.
Spiralgrowthsystems.com is the website. Yeah, where you can
Perfect.
find any and all of
Perfect.
that,
Awesome.
including just sign up for the newsletter and receive weekly newsletters and stay in touch there.
Beautiful.
All
Jordanna,
right.
thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Bev. It's such a joy. It's good to connect further with you too. It's been fun to do this.
Awesome. All right. I will talk to you again soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone. Thank you for being
Awesome.
here.
Thank you for joining us on the Spiritual Solopreneur podcast. I'm Bev Young, and I help spiritual and heart-centered entrepreneurs get maximum credibility and visibility online with websites they love and that work. See you next time.